You're live.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our work session. Today is Monday, April 28th, 2025. It's approximately 1 p.m. Eric Enriquez, Mayor. And if you all join me in a moment of silence for our public safety, our men and women of the military who continue to protect our country. If you join me in the pledge. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll go ahead and start with the jobs of the week. Sarah Rainey.
Good afternoon, thank you. My name is Sarah Rainey. I'm the one-stop coordinator for the America Job Center in New Mexico for the Southwest region. For jobs of the week, we have for the city of Las Cruces, a shift supervisor at the MVRDA. That one starts at $27.84 an hour and closes on the 5th of May. We also have street maintenance supervisor, starting at $51,000 a year, and that one also closes on the 5th. For Doña Ana County, we have supervisor for vector control. That one starts at $44,000 a year, and the posting closes on the 7th of May. We have a direct support professional and licensed practical nurse for the Hearts of Hope. That one starts at $13 an hour, and the posting closes at on the 17th. Excuse me. We have a firefighter EMT position at NMSU for $19.28 an hour. The posting closes on the 17th of May. And then we have 3 dishwasher positions at the Rio Grande Vineyards and Winery, starting at $14 an hour, and the posting closes on the 21st of May. As always, you can reach us at 226 South Alameda Boulevard. And then any of our social media outlooks is it's Employee NM at all of our callings. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Next is Pets of the Week. Carol?
Good afternoon. I'm Carol Nilsson, Digital Content Specialist for the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley. As a reminder, when our dog and cat of the week are promoted for the week, they are available at no cost. And really good news, our dog of the week, we actually had a rescue reach out to us, action program for animals, because they enrolled Brooke into their prison program. And so she'll be working with those at the prison to get trained so that she can go to a home. So we're super happy for her. And then our cat of the week also was adopted. So we had really good success this week so far, but we still do have long-term residents to highlight and plenty of other options for adoption. And right now we're running a special where all animals who are spayed and neutered, their adoption fee is waived right now because on the 30th it's National Adopt a Shelter Pet Day. So we would love to see people come in and find their forever companions. So Dora has now been at our center for 474 days. She is spayed, and so she is one of the ones that her fee is waived. Alice, 328 days. Tony is neutered, and so free, has been at our center for 312 days, and Whisper, 271 days. So those are just some of our long-term pets, but we have lots of pets to choose from. And this week, we will be at PetSmart on Friday from 10 to 1, and then we are going to be at Petco on Saturday. So definitely come out and visit us, and feel free to check out more information on our website or follow us on social media. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carol. Next, we'll start with our agenda items 3.1, fiscal year 2025 budget review and public hearing.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Rubalcava, Budget and Grant Administrator, and I'm here to present today the proposed budget for FY25-26. This year's budget, our theme is highlighting ways that the Las Cruces community celebrates Cariño through local events. So this is going to be showcasing the city's spirit and engagement through the year. For this year's cover photo, shown above, is celebrating the return of the Mesilla Valley Balloon Rally. Here you'll see the all fund expenditures. These are in millions, and these are for all the city funds. At the top, we'll start with the general fund. On this table, we show the FY25 revised, which for the general fund is approximately $168.3 million. FY26 proposed amount is $174 million. That is an increase of approximately $5.7 million or 3.4%. For all other operating funds, same information. For the FY25 revised, $3.3 million. FY26 proposed at $2.5, a decrease of $0.8 million or 24.2%. For special revenue funds, you have the FY25 revised of $79.4 million, FY26 proposed of $66.8 million. If we look down to the bottom, the citywide total for this year is for FY25 revised. Currently, the revised budget is $694.7 million, and the FY26 proposed is $609.6. This is a decrease of expenditures in all funds of approximately $85.1 million or 12.25%. I didn't go through all of the fund types, but we do have them broken down, and this is how you'll find them in the all funds summary, broken down at this level. This is a visual of the FY26 proposed city budget, again totaling the $609.6 million expenditures. The largest percentage we see here is enterprise funds at approximately 31%, followed by the general fund at 29%. Specifically just for the general fund expenditures, for the FY25 revised, it's currently sitting at about approximately $168.3 million. And for the proposed for 26, we're looking at $174 million, which is a 3.4% increase. And in here is a summary of just the general fund, again in millions, and shows similar information. We have the FY25 adopted budget on the first column, 2025 revised, 2026 proposed, and then the increases. So for this year, for the beginning balance for the general fund, the 2025 adopted was $64.6 million. The revised is currently at $71.9 million, and our proposed is $76.5 million. This is approximately a $4.6 million increase from the revised to the proposed. The revenues for the general fund were adopted at $162.4 for FY25. They're currently at 166.8, and for 2026, the proposed amount is 166.5. So we see a decrease of about 0.2%. For our expenditures, adopted was 165.6, and our revised is currently at 168.3. For 2026, we're proposing an increase of about $5.7 million to get us to $174 million. The ending balance for the general fund, there is a required 2/12 reserve, so you'll see that subtracted out to give us an unreserved balance. At adoption for FY25, we were sitting at $3.8 million. For the 2025 revised, we're at $9.8 million, and for 2026 proposed, $5.7 million. That is a decrease of approximately $4.1 million or 41.8%. Here's a breakdown of the general fund increases. Again, this is taking us from the revised budget of 168.3 to the proposed of 174 million, which is approximately a difference of 5.7 million. Breaking that down, that comes down to personnel increased approximately 10.4, operating decreased 1.8 million, and capital decreased 2.9 million to give us that total change from FY25 of 5.7 million. Here are some considerations that were used to budget for FY26. Starting off with the salary and benefit projections, there is a 5% general wage increase already included into the benefit projections. Represented and bargain contracts were already incorporated. Longevity has been incorporated. And for vacant positions, this year they are being budgeted at first quartile for 50% of the year, or budgeted at 50%. And the health insurance is budgeted at employee and spouse rate. There is a para increase of about 0.5% included, and we're budgeting insurance premium increases at 12%. Showing where your money comes from. This is just for the general fund. It's a breakdown of the revenue sources for the general fund, largely made up of the gross receipts tax at approximately 79%, or 130.7 million. Followed by fees and charges, property tax at 15.7, fees and charges at 15.2, franchise fees at approximately 4 million, and cannabis excise tax at 750,000. And this gives us a total for the general fund of revenue at 166.5 million. Where your money goes, this is again just for the general fund. Our expenditures for the general fund are largely made up of personnel at 69%, or 120.2 million, followed by operating at 31%, or 53.4 million, and then capital is a small amount at 342,000, giving us the total budgeted expenditures at 174 million for the general fund for FY26. We wanted to highlight the transfers that are currently budgeted for the general fund. These are transfers that are coming out of the general fund, and they're broken down to show the transfer description and the amount. For example, we see here the vehicle acquisition budgeted at $1 million. And here is a continuation of the same information, continuing with general fund transfers. The total net transfers coming from the general fund, including debt, is approximately 34.3 million for FY26. We have a breakdown here of the FY26 recommended new positions. This is just for the general fund on this slide. The asterisk shows which are budgeted at 50%, and the little one next to it shows any positions that are related to a council request. So for Parks and Rec, we have a recreation services supervisor, senior landscape architect, irrigation worker, and a youth program specialist. 6 youth program specialists. For police, a codes enforcement officer and an animal control officer. Finance, buyer 1. Here's a continuation of the new positions for the general fund. City manager's office, a Mesilla Valley Community of Hope facilities maintenance worker. Quality of life, a library 2 collection development. And for the fire department, 6 firefighters, 3 drivers, and 3 lieutenants. Here on this slide, we do have another asterisk shown with 2, and these are for items that are budgeted at 25%. This gives us a total new position count of 26 for the general fund. Here we have non-general fund positions. For Visit Las Cruces, office assistant senior and an intern. For Public Works, a utility locator 1 and 2 light equipment operators. For Quality of Life, a food service worker, utilities, an MIS administrative assistant, and a GIS technician 1. On this side, we're continuing the non-general fund positions with utilities, SCADA network specialist 1, billing and receivables representative, water quality lab senior office assistant, and a solid waste service worker, giving us a total count of 12 new positions for non-general fund. We did want to highlight the items that have been budgeted for fire and police academies for FY26. So for fire, there is an anticipated start date of February 2026 for an academy, with an expected graduation date of June 2026. This academy will support the staffing needs of the new Fire Station 9 and will also help filling positions across the fire department. Also already included in the budget is budget for a police academy. There is currently one starting this fiscal year in April. This is the 55th Academy, which with an expected graduation date of September 2025. So we'll cross fiscal years. And there is also the 56th Police Academy that is budgeted, and this one is to be held from January through July 2026. And so this will support recruitment and maintain staffing levels in line with operational needs. We have some council highlights. These are first for the general fund. These are items that were identified from the budget retreat as council requests. This may not be an exhaustive list. We did depend on the departments to provide some information for council request. So these are just highlights. For police department, the NIBIN lease. The NIBIN lease will improve our ability to solve firearm-related crimes through rapid ballistic evidence comparisons, boosting efficiency and supporting national forensic efforts to enhance community safety. This is currently budgeted at $40,000. For Parks and Rec, we have PAL Boxing. PAL Boxing is a program that teaches boxing and provides support for at-risk and low-income youth, though it is open to all kids and young adults. And this is currently budgeted at $100,000. For Public Works, we have the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program, which aims to reduce vehicle speeds and improve safety on residential streets through measures like speed humps, traffic circles, and signage. This is budgeted at $140,000. For communications, a closed captioning Spanish translation budgeted at $4,320, and this uses AI to automatically translate English into Spanish for closed captioning during live government events. For ED, an MRA Projects Jumpstart budgeted at $100,000. This offers financial incentives to businesses and property owners within the metropolitan redevelopment area. For City Manager's Office, SNAP, or the Spay and Neuter Action Program, budgeted at $80,000, helps prevent pet overpopulation and improve animal health in Doñana County by offering low-cost or free spay/neuter surgeries. For fire, this is just specific to fire this time. This is overtime for licensed master social workers. This would allow funding for overtime as needed for out-of-office hours, specifically to cover the light program. And then this is budgeted at $38,922. And then lastly, under City Manager's Office, a public health coordinator. This is a grant that will be applied for, and so the plan is for this to be a grant-funded position. And this will plan and oversee public health programs working to promote health, prevent disease, and ensure access to health services within a community. We have a council highlights for all other funds. For community development, these first three are for TID. So the first one, the downtown security cameras, is part of a partnership aimed at enhancing public safety in the area, particularly during events like the farmers market and other local gatherings, budgeted at $175,000. Rio Grande Theater interior painting, budgeted at $52,000. It aligns with the city's mission to beautify downtown and maintain the area's historic charm. And last, we have the downtown planters safety improvements at $80,000. and this is a partnership aimed at enhancing urban safety. For Public Works, a sidewalk condition assessment at $440,000 involves inspecting sidewalks for issues like cracks, uneven surfaces, and hazards to ensure pedestrian safety. And City Manager's Office, specifically Housing and Neighborhood Services, Storefront Repair Initiative. This is a carryover from FY25. The carryover amount is approximately $271,866. And this provides funding to local businesses impacted by graffiti or vandalism. And this funding amount has increased from $2,500 to $5,000 per occurrence, enabling businesses to make more significant repairs and improvements. I am going to hand it over to Mercedes Tomeko from Fleet so she can go over the VAF vehicle list.
Excuse me. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. Mercedes Tomeko for Fleet Services. After reviewing department vehicle requests, these are the 17 units that are approved for purchase by the Vehicle Acquisition Fund. Fire is approved for 2 vehicles, an F-150 and a Maverick. Both are for operational support. Parks and Recreation is approved for 3 F-150s. 2 units will be for sports fields, and 1 unit is for park maintenance. The Police Department has been approved for 8 Ford Interceptors for patrol and an F-150 for animal control. Public Works has been approved for an F-150 for construction management, and Quality of Life has been approved for 2 F-150s for senior nutrition. I'll hand this back to Jacqueline.
Thank you. Jacqueline Rubalcaba for the record. For fiscal agent contributions, we have 3 agencies listed: Animal Services, MIRVDA, and Metro. We've listed here the FY25 City of Las Cruces contribution. These listed here are only the City of Las Cruces portions. For FY25 City of Las Cruces contribution for Animal Services was $2,220,136. And the FY26 proposed contribution is $2,335,136, or an increase of 5.18%. For MIRVDA, the FY25 contribution was approximately $2.8 million, and for FY26, the proposed contribution is $3,031,131, which is an increase of approximately 7%. For Metro, the FY25 City of Las Cruces contribution and the FY26 proposed contribution are both $325,543 with no increase. This totals a contribution for the proposed FY26 for a fiscal agent contribution to $5.6 million, which is an increase of approximately 5.86% from last year. We wanted to provide an update from Talshore funding, and so these are amounts that were budgeted in FY25. We've listed them, and then we've included the estimated carryover amount. This carryover amount was provided by the departments, and so this is subject to change. It is currently just an estimate. But for the FY25 budget, so if it shows on here, for example, facility maintenance, the first one on our list, the FY25 budget was $1 million. They're estimating it'll be fully spent, and so there will be nothing carried over. On the next slide, we will continue with the Talshore Fund updates. Again, it's the same information and the amount projected to be carried over into the following fiscal year. This amount that's carried over is already included in the budget for FY26. And then here is a continuation. There are some FY24 carryovers on this list, and so they have been identified as well. Here are the FY26 Talshore request highlights. These are items that are currently being budgeted for FY26 out of the Talshore Fund. They are for City Manager's Office, Housing and Neighborhood Services, Mano a Mano at $676,000, Safety opportunities support at $199,913. Health public services at $600,000. Homeless outreach program at $164,000, giving us a total of $1,639,913 coming out of the Tall Shore Fund for FY26. And I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Any questions? Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you so much for the presentation. When I was in law school, I took accounting for lawyers. I dropped the class because it's like, to me, it's like a totally different language altogether. It's a different world. So please forgive my, indulge me, please. On page, most recently on page 25, there's a homeless outreach allocation. And what exactly is, for what purpose is that allocated? I mean, it isn't handed out to the homeless, is it? I mean, it's not.
Natalie is coming up to answer that question.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Flores, Natalie Green for the record. Our homeless outreach program staffs two teams of 2 employees that do street outreach to people experiencing homelessness in our community. So when we get calls out for our neighbors who are in different parts of the city, right? So we get a call, someone is living in this area, please send outreach. And so our outreach team goes out there, engages with those individuals, make sure that they have updated case notes, right? They've done their housing intakes, and they work with them to bring them closer to the Mesilla Valley Community Hope campuses to receive services, and then hopefully transition into Camp Hope or housing programs to address their unhoused status.
So is it the personnel at City Community of Hope that does the actual outreach?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Flores, that's correct. We contract out with the Mesilla Valley Community Hope. They hire the team, so there's 2 teams of 2 employees each, so 4 employees total, and they manage that program on behalf of the city.
Oh, that's great. I think it'd be a good, well, it's not about the budget, but to be informed about that, because I think all of us on the city council are very much concerned with the unhoused, and it would just, get some stats on that. Thank you so much, Ms. Natalie.
Thank you.
And I have more questions. The allocation made for the Rio Grande painting of $52,000, was it 52? Yeah, 52. Is that coming out of the TID? And then do you really think what's going to be painted, one wall? I mean, seriously, painting is an art, and that theater is probably going to require some gold, some paint, no?
I'm going to defer to Chris Faber for this.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Councilor. Chris Faber with Community Development. Yeah, so there was money already budgeted to do some painting work on the interior and exterior of the RGT. This is just extra money to make sure they have enough to do all that. And it's just touching up the paint on the inside of the building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a good explanation, because I thought, it's not going to get done, or it's not going to be finished, but great. Thank you for the explanation.
Sure.
Thank you, Chris. And I have more questions. On page 20, the allocation of monies for our fire department, for our different departments, are these new automobiles slated to replace or to add the existing amount of cars and vehicles?
These are for replacement.
They're for replacement?
Mercedes will
The only vehicle that will be new and added to the fleet is for the animal control officer for that new position. Everything else is a replacement to the fleet.
Oh, okay, so there's going to be an additional vehicle for the animal control personnel.
Yes, correct.
Wonderful.
So there'll be one added animal control officer vehicle. All the other 16 vehicles are replacement vehicles.
Great, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Mercedes, could you state your
Yep,
name
sorry.
just for the minutes?
Mercedes Tomeko, for the record.
Thank you.
Thank
about
you,
that.
Mercedes. And I have more questions. On page 23, you have gap funding. And what is that? You prefaced it by saying it was gap funding. What exactly is gap funding? I mean, for example, we have homeless outreach, 75,000, carryover 0. Where's the gap? Or what is it?
So when we put gap funding, we refer to funding needed to complete the project. So this $2 million has been set aside in order to meet all of the construction needs for Fire Station 9.
Oh, okay. And on page 8, there's reference to longevity. Yeah, was it page 8?
Yes.
Yeah. So what exactly does that mean?
So HR does a calculation based off of the different positions. And so for any represented bargain contracts or any employees who qualify for longevity, that has been incorporated into the budget. And that is a calculation completed through the salary and benefit projections that HR provides. And then we incorporate those into the budget.
Okay, so it's a projection.
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. And then on page 11, there's a balance on the general fund. And what does that cover?
I'm sorry.
There was a page 11 and there was a general fund. Maybe I've got the wrong page. Anyway, there was, I'm sorry.
Is
sorry.
it slide 6? Is it the unreserved balance?
You can explain that also. A lot of this is like really, I'm really dense in that regard. In many regards, but this is one of them.
Of course, no problem. So for the general fund summary, this is a breakdown of the year. So the beginning balance is what we have here for the FY26 proposed at I'm sorry? We have a beginning balance of approximately 76.5 million. That includes any projections or any carryovers that we're bringing in from the prior fiscal year. And then we subtract out or add in the revenues and expenditures and transfers, which gives us an ending balance. And then because the general fund is required to have a 2/12 reserve, then we take out the 2/12 reserve, which in this case for FY26 is approximately $28.9 million, to give us an unreserved balance of $5.7 million. So this just shows us the trajectory of the year, and this is the information that is budgeted. So this isn't based off of actuals, it is just based off of budgeted information at the beginning of the year for the proposed.
And these numbers can change.
Yes, so we normally, at this time, we are relying strongly on projections, and so that's the departments are projecting how much they're going to spend to the end of the fiscal year. During FY26, the audit will be completed for FY25. Once the audit numbers are out, we come to council and update any beginning balances to reflect actuals. At that time, then we'll update the beginning balances to reflect what was actually spent. And so that will be updated throughout the year. And that's where we see that difference between the 2025 adopted and the 2026 revised.
Okay, and when will that be presented to council?
So for FY26, approximately around February.
Of next year?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I think that, page 17, fire department for the allocation for the light project. What, where are we? Page 17. Page 17.
Okay.
Yeah. The, it's what? Oh, yeah. You know what? I have the wrong number. I'm telling you, I'm horrible with numbers.
No worries, it's
I'm-
right here on 18.
No, okay. I was just wondering if, oh, I know. Fire, overtime licensed master social workers. So that 38,922, is that going to be enough to add? Oh, for the overtime? Oh.
That is the
Is that-
estimate.
Because how many LMWs do we have, SWs?
I'll have to defer that question to fire on the specific amount currently employed by fire.
Go ahead, Chief Daniel.
Mayor, Councilor Flores, Mike Daniels for the record. We currently have 3 social workers. Part of this overtime plan is to increase their availability. Currently, they're exempt, so we're reclassifying them as part of this to a non-exempt status so that they can be used for backfill to keep the light team in service more often versus hiring new FTEs. When one's out or on leave, this allows us to bring them in off duty so that we can keep the light team in service more days out of the year.
Yeah, and my question is really based on my humble opinion that you probably need more FTEs in the license MSWs. I mean, that's my humble opinion.
So based on the current downtime, it doesn't appear that we would need them unless we want more light teams in service, but to maintain the current single light team in service, we believe we can accomplish a decent amount of coverage, or quite a bit more coverage just by being able to utilize off-duty and bringing them in.
Yeah. Well, it would be great if we could have a presentation on that. I don't want to overstep city manager or mayor, but I think it'd be great if we could have, because I know that Mayor Pro Tem, our former Mayor Pro Tem, Cassandra Gandara worked really hard on this, and I remember just, being, watching and listening. So I'm just following up on all of that. Thank you so much. And thank you. Thank you very much for your indulging me. Thank you.
Councilor Corinne.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and the booklet, which I'm going from page 50, which I think is approximately where a lot of this stuff is. So I really appreciate having the document. This is really skinny though, so I'm looking forward to the giant thick one that I collect in my office and actually read. Thank you for the concise version for today. I had a couple of quick questions and follow-ups. I really appreciate you all including staff wage increases. I think 5%, I just feel like we're behind. Everyone is behind because of the rate of inflation, and I really appreciate and always want to advocate for us making an investment and paying our folks the best ways that we possibly can, always all staff throughout the institution, and I think we have the best employees, and I really appreciate that initiative, which is more than the state gave, recognizing, a lot of state employees are at 3 or 4%, so that's outstripping them, and I again am proud that we're a great employer, and I want us to keep that up. So I wanted to express my gratitude for that, the inclusion of a 5% increase, which again I don't think is enough given the inflationary rates, but I understand that we're also in a really difficult budgetary moment with a lot of ambiguity in the future. So I think our humans are the best thing that we have. Yeah, so I think I appreciate our investment in that. The other part that I wanted to really point out, I think the neighborhood traffic calming program, we had a really brief conversation about this last week. $140,000. I feel like this there are probably 3 things that I've mentioned that my residents are really worried about, and I recently got the summary from the Neighborhood Watches, which reiterates this idea that one of the big things that folks really want is for traffic to be slowed down on their streets. And I know that this is a representation toward what we asked for, but it doesn't come close to what we really need to do to invest in neighborhood traffic calming. So I actually would love to have a specific work session related to neighborhood traffic calming sometime, and what kind of things we might need to fund in the future if we really want to invest in this. So this isn't really a question, it's more of a comment, as you are ever accustomed to from us. But I just want to say this investment, I appreciate it as a gesture toward this, but that's like 1/20th of a traffic circle, and my neighborhoods want like 15 new traffic circles last month. So, except for the people that hate traffic circles. So thank you for that. And then the last thing that I just wanted to go to was on slide 25. This is another thing that folks in my area and across the city have really said they appreciate, is mano y mano. I think that this had a higher budget allocation in the past, and one of the things that folks really reported is that they feel like this service that we offer is really powerful, and I think they're visible in my neighborhood, and so I've heard from residents that mano y mano is making an impact. So I'm just curious why the reduction, because I don't get the sense that there's less of a need, and I think they're really delivering on what they need to be. So I think that's one of the places that I was curious what's going on there.
So this $676,000 for mano y mano is based off of the amended service agreement. So the service agreement was for $676,000, and so that's what is being budgeted here. There is a carryover from that amount. Last year, I think it was $903,000 that was budgeted, including vehicles. So those vehicles have been ordered, and there is also a carryover of that amount.
Yeah, I just don't want that service to be reduced. That's one of the things that I'm really hoping we can maintain in so whatever that looks like.
Mr. Mayor, Council Curran, I will add that while the service agreement is for $676,000, that's what we subcontract out to Mano a Mano. The city still has expenses that we have to provide as part of our contract that are not in that number, so it is underfunded. The city is required to provide all the supplies, all the vehicles, and the long-term maintenance. In addition, one of our vehicles died, and the other one has 600,000 miles, and so part of that funding was the replacement of the mano y mano vehicle. So we are hoping to see that restored to what was requested and budgeted. So last year, council raised that to the 814 and added that additional truck. So if it stays at the 676, we will be reducing our level of service to parks in particular, because it's the van that's impacted.
Thank you. I would like to see us maintain the level of service that we have for mano y mano, because it is something that my residents, I know, really speak very highly of and feel it's a visible impact in their communities for what they're experiencing. Traffic calming is the second thing that I just really want us to think about ways that we can invest and have forward that conversation. And so I appreciate seeing both of those things in here, as well as many other things that we've talked about, but those are 2 things that I continue to hear from my residents. So thank you again for the work on this. I know that you all really faced a daunting task this year of doing it a little bit differently, and I really appreciate the way that all of the departments have put in to think about this in a different way and really look constructively at the ways that we make an impact in our community. So thank you again for your presentation and listening to my comments, not questions.
Of course, and I just did want to add, Jacqueline Rubalcaba for the record, that the neighborhood traffic calming program, the amount budgeted is for a pilot program.
Councilor McClure.
Thanks, Mayor. I had a question for page 18. The public health coordinator, I think that came up during our presentations, and I'm just curious about the thought process of having it grant funded, especially with grants around the country as they are, and sort of just the idea of that's kind of unstable, and where's the priority of that in terms of finding that grant for it?
So there has already, Mayor, Councilor McClure, there is already a grant that has been identified and is in the process of being applied for. And so that, with that grant, a portion of that will go to fund the public health coordinator.
Do we know when that might come through? Is there kind of a tentative award date if we did get it?
Not at this time, I don't believe, I don't have the answer here. We can look into that.
I'd be curious to see whether or not we can actually, maybe even just a part-time position before it actually, the grant does come through, to see whether or not we do that. But I see someone else coming to this.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Curran. We did receive notice from the governor's office that has been awarded. It's $350,000. The bulk of that will be for staff, and it's a 2-year grant. We're just finalizing that scope of work, and then we'll bring it into the budget.
Awesome, thank you. And I also wanted to second the idea of having a traffic calming work session. I think that would be valuable. I also get a lot of those. And yeah, Mano a Mano also is a super valuable program that I would like to see make sure that we sustain that level of service as well. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you so much, Jacqueline, and the rest of the budget team for getting us here. This is our last hearing, right, before our official vote?
Yes, that's
Yes,
correct.
okay. I'm just going to go kind of down the list on page numbers, and since you're here, this is perfect. I'll start here. This isn't really a question. I honestly just wanted to say that this is my 5th budget cycle, and it has felt the most different in a good way. I will say that I feel like you having sort of the highlights here, the council priorities, and then the little ones next to some of those requests. I've said this before. I feel like in the past it just has felt like a little autopilot, the budget cycle, and this time felt really generative. And most of us come very well prepared to budget sessions because we've been in the community, we've been talking to people, and we know exactly what we're going to be asking for and ensuring that gets uplifted and funded. And so I just wanted to appreciate that first and foremost. A question on number 19. You have the storefront repair initiative carryover. I'm sort of just very curious around the process here, right? Like I knew that at the end of last year, we were nervous regarding ARPA dollars. Are this additional allocations we've given to the storefront program, or are these still ARPA dollars that have been sort of, secured and not going to get pulled back?
Mayor Pro Tem, this is that continuation of the ARPA funding. So this carryover amount is from ARPA.
Okay, but they're safe? No one's trying to claw these back?
We have not heard that anything will be clawed back from ARPA.
I'll claw back myself. Just kidding. It's a good program, so I'm glad it's still going. Page 20. On vehicles, I apologize. I don't remember if last year when we initially sort of allocated for park rangers, if we also allocated for vehicles. Did we do that last year? Is that already in the budget?
I'd have to look into that. I believe they have been, but I'm not sure the amount of vehicles.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chief.
Mayor Pro Tem, yes, and we have all 3 of those vehicles sitting at the
great.
police department right now.
Okay, thank you,
Waiting for the
Chief.
Rangers to fill them.
Thank you. I could not remember, so thanks for that. And then, honestly, I had the similar question as Councilor Corrin around page 25 in Mano y Mano. I think probably every single one of us up here makes requests to Natalie to send the Mano y Mano program, if not on a weekly basis, on a pretty regular basis. I think that those vehicles take a significant beating, like they're doing very hard work. I think that they're doing really important work. Not only is it the vans, which, I've heard that there's a van that's been totally broken. They're literally using one on loan. I think they have equipment that needs to be used, right? Like the little trash pickup things, vests, bags, like all of this kind of equipment. I think Community of Hope covers the insurance for the vans, right? So I know that not even the entirety of Mano y Mano isn't even being fully funded by the city, right? Like I think Community of Hope as a whole puts in additional funds as well, like insurance for the vans, the food for the employees gets provided by El Caldito and Casa de Peregrinos. Of course, they have to maintain wages like the rest of the city, and so I also want to make sure that we are funding programs that work. Like these programs in our community work because I see them out there all of the time, but like I hear back from community members that how grateful they are that something like this exists. And so I would really hate for us to roll back something that exists, given something that works, given the conversation we continue to have around our unhoused neighbors. So I did just want to give that last plug. Because I also want to make sure that we provide them the funding they need to continue doing the level of service that they have been so far. Thank you.
Councilor Matisse.
My question is, if you go to page 22, and then, okay, and you see these initiatives, and the question's really for the city manager. All of this is from the Telshore Fund, correct? Page 22, 23, 24. And of course, that's not a recurring fund. I mean, we have another 14 million that we could take out of it, and we might last through 27, 28, maybe 29. But all these great initiatives, how are they going to be funded in, say, fiscal year 2029? Mr. Akani?
Councilor Batiste, you're asking for a project that has not been identified?
In other words, well, I assume you're going to continue these initiatives, correct? Mano a mano? I mean, it's a great program. But right now, it's being funded from the Telshore Fund.
Yeah, Councilor Matisse, great question. Mano y Mano is approved by, this budget that you see in front of you is approved by U.S. Council, as you know. To answer your 2029 question, hypothetical.
I know it's hypothetical. It's just that once that money's used, is it?
Got it.
It's gone, right?
Understood. Now
but you want these programs and these great initiatives, the housing initiatives, all of them, to continue. I mean, not just for 2 years, 3 years. You want them perpetual, correct?
Yes. Councilor Matisse, what I'll share with you to answer your question at its most simplest form is this is Telshore Fund. Once it's used, the funds are reduced. We receive interest on these funds currently right now. So if we do nothing with them, we continue to receive revenues based on its interest. But Natalie can answer some of the questions as well.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Matisse, this year the state of New Mexico put out some significant resources both for affordable housing and homeless encampment response. So our goal is to utilize those fundings and reimburse the Telshore funds for much of these projects. In terms of the affordable housing projects, those are one-time projects and they are loans, so all the revenue will come back to the city. Of course, that's over a 20-year period, but our intent is to make the Telshore Fund whole for any of the funds that it's allocated to us for loans. In terms of the gap funding for Amador Crossing, again, we've been very successful at acquiring. I haven't announced it yet. I was going to do it in my next presentation, but we just got another $2 million to help recoup some of the expenses that the city's paying. So our goal is to fund these programs with other revenues as much as possible, and so we'll be working on that over the next year.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to sort of tackle a little bit of that question as well. I think that the longer and the more intentional we are about investing in long-term solutions like housing, the more we invest in housing people who are currently experiencing homelessness, and the more we invest in building our housing stock through things like Realize and those kinds of long-term solutions, the less there'll be a need for things like Mano y Mano. So ultimately the goal is, while Mano is incredible and I want to see it fully funded, the goal is for us to not need it eventually. And I'm not saying 2029 is that timeline, but the more we invest in the long-term solutions, the less we will need for the shorter-term solutions that are currently working right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro. I guess had we done this 15, 20 years ago and had good investments and good revenue, we would have probably never needed the Telshore Fund. So it's a good project and a good way to go.
Okay, thank you. A couple of questions, just getting back to the page 20 with the vehicles. Just want to make sure, like, on the staffing, we've got one new code officer coming and one new animal control. I think you said there's one vehicle for animal control. Are we going to make sure that we get the vehicle for the new code officer as well?
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, the animal control officer is the one budgeted, and I'm going to defer to police on that question.
Go ahead, Chief.
Mayor, there's not a vehicle that's dedicated for it, but we have some other solutions. So we're working with fire to repurpose a vehicle that was potentially going to be sent to auction, and we have a couple other backup plans. So I think we have it covered with it. It's actually a decent vehicle for the codes officer.
Okay, thanks. Just want to make sure that if you get a new position, that we get all the resources that they need to be able to fulfill their duties. One of the other things that has been brought to my attention, and I think it'd be page 22, with, I think it would fall under maybe the CM office for health, public services, if not under the Telshore Fund, maybe quality of life, maybe there's another funding source for the Las Cruces Public Schools has reached out for some of their case managers or social workers that they have after-school programs that only fulfills 2 days out of the week, and they're requesting $150,000 that would do 5 days out of the week. And I think that's a great intervention program, a great public service health-wise for our community, that if we could partner up and help out Las Cruces Public Schools with their social workers and making sure that for the youth in our community, we're giving them 5 days out of the week instead of just 2. So I guess I'll look to the city manager to see where exactly that would fall under the budget, but that is a request also, working with our community schools and the public schools. And the other one, I know I agree too with traffic calming. Those are always concerns that come out from the residents. But the other thing is training and safety. And I know I'm just springing this on now because I just saw it last week. There's a company here in town, Mansco company, that is doing a school instruction for heavy equipment operators. And they had some simulators there that they can do up to 36 vehicles. Included there are police units, fire apparatus, heavy equipment that our public works and street use all the time. There's simulators that cost about $70,000, and I'm just throwing it out there because I promised Lucio I would, and say that it'd be great for training, for testing, preventing accidents, and just helping our staff to get better trained in traffic. So that's another item that I present and throw out there. Councilor Matisse.
Mayor, I'd just like to support you on your request for the social workers for Las Cruces Public Schools. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, at this point, being that this is a public hearing for our budget, is there any members of the public that would wish to speak at this time? Yes, come on up. minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we'll give you up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Linda St. Clair. I'm the president of the Friends of Thomas Brannig Memorial Library. And I want to start just by thanking you for the support you've already shown for the design process for the renovation that I'm sure was helpful for us when we went to the state legislature and were able to get some funding from them. And we will continue harassing them for more capital campaigns. But you have in this budget a librarian 2 collection development position, and I do want to encourage you, that is an incredibly important position for the library. It is, our library staff is so incredible. They wear so many hats and do so many things outside of their regular responsibilities because we don't have someone in that position and haven't for quite some time, as I understand it. So I just would like to encourage you to support that library collection position. The operation of the library is so vital to so many people. The Friends, actually, I have more friends here in the audience, but they're out at running the book sale that we have going on right now to try and bring in some more money to help with some of the other operating expenses that come up that they don't have the money for in the budget that the staff does such a great job of putting on. So I want to thank you for your support in the past and encourage you to keep supporting the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, come on up.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Nicole Martinez. I also just wanted to express my gratitude for including Community of Hope in the budget and supporting some of our programs. I know that our homeless outreach program, the Mano a Mano program, are certainly coveted programs in several other communities. I think it's a really strong partnership that we have with the city of Las Cruces and shows that we care about our unhoused neighbors. I also am really grateful to see that it's been budgeted to have on-site maintenance for Community of Hope. Not sure if you know how it works right now, but currently if Hardine's toilet breaks, the work order comes to me, I send it to the city. Costa Peregrino's lights go out, comes to me, goes to the city, and then sometimes I don't know if things are getting updated or what might be happening, so this really will streamline and prevent a lot of the things I think that we see happen at Community of Hope. So I'm really excited to have that there. Hopefully it will save the city some money in the future. And while I'm here, I also just wanted to comment on a couple of other programs I know that are city funded. They're not necessarily in this budget. One of them is the GROW funding that we've gotten from legislature. And that's to help people with some one-time assistance, people that are exiting homelessness, transitioning into their own apartments, might be security deposits. But a lot of the funding that we have used has been to prevent homelessness. So I know that sometimes it gets lost that we're doing a lot of those things too. So we have a lot of different types of housing programs, but we're really flexible and that we think that housing is the way to go with that. So people that, I know that there was a woman that had come, information about her losing her housing had come forward. Those are the types of people that we are helping constantly. Since July, we've served 163 clients with that funding, so prevented at least 103 of those people from becoming homeless by assisting with that funding. 19 with security deposits, several with utilities, and quite a few that were also utilizing that for their first month's rent. We also have been operating ARPA funding, the landlord risk mitigation program, that can also be used, would have worked for that same woman as well. And we have worked with 33 unique landlords in the city of Las Cruces with the landlord mitigation. It's for damages, but it's also for recruiting landlords. It's also for helping bring units into compliance with inspections so that they're safe when we're moving people into those units. And then we also have other funding sources that come from the state that will assist people with homeless prevention funding in more than just 1 month of rent, so more ongoing assistance for people who might be facing eviction. So just wanted to let you know that those are things that the city's also been supporting. I don't think that landlord risk made it into this particular budget, but it remains a really useful program in keeping people either in their own home or quickly moving them to another unit so that they don't join the ranks of our unhoused population. So again, just wanted to say thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, come on up.
Just Tim Jenkins for the records. A question. I mean, I don't know how many times in the last year I've actually called on Mano a Mano, and they have done excellent work. But I remember prior to COVID that we had a program with the inmates picking up trash, which I know the governor shut down during COVID. But would that maybe be an option of something we could maybe implement or bring back to help cut costs? Just an idea. Just thought I'd bring it up.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? No? All right, thank you. Where's Leslie? And just real quick, again, thank you to Leslie and her staff and Jacqueline, everybody for the budget and the review. Thank you. And next, we'll go to item 3.2, Capital Improvement Program FY26 Review and Public Hearing. And Cynthia.
Okay, good afternoon, City Council, Mayor. My name is Cynthia Lamillo, CIP Manager with Planning and Implementation, and we're here to present the proposed FY26 CIP. So I first want to start by making a note as to what is capital assets, which are assets that have a useful life or more than that 1 year. So for the city, that means a vehicle, a building, infrastructure, road, utility systems. So with that, you can imagine that our CIP program has a lot of projects. So when we say capital improvement projects, that could range from the procurement of a vehicle, the expansion of a building, or a street reconstruction. So with that, as you can see, our process is significant, but most of all, the CIP process and the document of it, it's required by city charter. The document prioritizes capital needs and identify potential sources associated with those projects. It informs the selection of the legislative priorities. As we know, the state has a process every year where we submit projects to be considered for capital outlay or funding for from the legislative session. It also informs the public of the city's infrastructure investment and informs the public of our future needs in terms of capital projects. The CIP produces a document that spans for 6 years. 1 year is funded, and the remaining 5 years are unfunded needs. So this is how we communicate to the public what projects are needed and how much funding the city needs to complete those projects. The projects are guided by the city's comprehensive plan and any other city council adopted plans. It uses several funding sources from grants, capital outlay, bonds, and loans, and it is approved by City Council, and all of the amendments following the adoption are also approved by City Council. For the FY26 process, CIP staff and departments started preparing for it since May of 2024. During this time, there are pre-scoping meetings with departments, there's evaluation of upcoming infrastructure needs. In August of 2024, we start with a CIP kickoff. That's where we set all of the changes to the process, and we ask departments to please start thinking about the projects that they would like to be submitted for the CIP. That period of submittal ends in September, and in November, the CIP evaluation process starts. At this evaluation process, we evaluate all of the data that was submitted by department. Projects go through an internal review of 4 key departments: Public Works, Sustainability, Facilities, and Utilities, as those are key projects, key programs that have a say in capital projects. After that, there's more evaluation and back and forth with the department. In March of this year, we had the CIP retreat. We had the work session and publication of the preliminary of or proposed CIP document. We are now in our second work session and public hearing, and we will hope to follow in May with the CIP adoption. I want to point out that the numbers I will be presenting today are adjusted from what was published, as the publication was in March. The current fiscal year continues. We're continually reevaluating and revising the account, so we're constantly working on getting ready the document for adoption in May. This is an overview of the proposed or preliminary CIP. Last year, the funded projects amounted to 133 million. Currently, we have 191. We have a 14% increase change. And this, one of the factors that are leading to this increase is that last year, we had several projects that were funded, and those were large multi-year projects. For example, the park maintenance with the legacy and several, the inductive charging and Fire Station 9. So we have many projects where the funding is being carried over for this coming year, so that number goes up. Our funding needs have also increased by 29%. One element that we can attribute to this is as we place more structure to the CIP process, departments are constantly working on finding and identifying those capital projects that are needed and going through the CIP process, so we can identify really what's upcoming and the funding that are needed to complete those projects. The CIP, aside from its financial, is also spatial, as we want to recognize the importance of the location of the capital projects. This is a quick snapshot of where the projects are. The dots represent projects, and the lines are streets or trail projects. But as you can see, majority are downtown. We have a good number of projects at the airport, a few street projects at the industrial park, and a few up here towards the north part of the city. The FY26 preliminary CIP is identified by 4 types of projects. The first one is carryover, which we have 120 projects, which are projects that have started or have already been added to the CIP, and we're moving them on to the next year. 44 annual projects. These are projects that receive funding on an annual basis, as they have projects are recurring. For example, roof replacements that we know that they constantly have projects. And we have 130 future projects. Those are projects that have been identified as a need, but there's no funding associated to it, so we consider them future. And one newly funded from the communications department. And next to it, you will see the funding associated to the projects by the same category of project type. Carryover and annual, that will be our funded. So we have 175 million carryover project, 16 in annual projects, and the newly funded project of 181 for the communications department. The CIP has multiple funding sources. We use loans, bonds, grants, and this is the distribution of all of the funding uses in the CIP. As you can see, the largest option is the grants, which includes the capital outlay. Those are funding that we've received from the state. We have then loans, 2.8 with bonds, and the 26 from taxes. The smaller amounts that you see on the right side are for waste and wastewater impact fees and park impact fees. There's a small lever of other, which includes a capital improvement, gas capital, gifts and memorial, public works capital improvements, wastewater capital improvements, and water. So this is a distribution of funding sources. This next slide provides a distribution by department. And as you can see, the highest departments will be those with projects that are in capital. For example, utilities, we have Public Works with 58 million. The smaller departments, it's understandable that they have less capital projects. For example, Visit Las Cruces, 75, which is one project for furniture for the convention center. This next slide is the same information, but a different visual, just to see the funding by department. So again, we have the 3 departments with the highest capital funding, which is Parks and Rec, Utilities, and Public Works. This next slide shows the projects in terms of numbers. So street improvements, we have 69 projects. Towards the middle, you see city operational facilities with 12 projects. And I want to point out that the categories in the CIP are meant to facilitate keeping track of the nature of the projects and the monitoring. So city operational facilities will be like improvements to the city hall versus public facilities where we have 69 projects. That will be our library, our senior centers, all of those public facilities where there's more usage rather than operational. This next slide is again summary by categories, but this is the funding that's associated with each of the categories. So we have utilities with 5.2, street improvements with 40 million, and the third highest, public facilities with 22 million. There's a smaller percentage for the other, which we merged 2 categories, which is equipment and IT. And city operational facilities. So this summary represents the funded and the outer 5 years, which are unfunded by category. This slide shows active transportation, airport, attainable and affordable housing, and city operational facilities. Second slide, we have public facilities, public safety, public transit, resiliency, streets new, street improvements, and utilities. And again, the FY 27 to 31 are all unfunded. Those are the needs for each of the categories. So in the past, in 2023, 3 programs were developed, active transportation, complete streets, and resiliency, and all of them to provide a more a focus to all projects related to active transportation, complete street, and resiliency. So active transportation are those that we want to prioritize as it is active transportation. Complete streets, we want to emphasize well-designed multimodal roadways, and resiliency, we want to prioritize green infrastructure elements, anything from stormwater drainage, trees, anything that will improve the, or will enhance green infrastructure. So again, these programs were meant to focus funding on these priorities. So with that, there was also the process called the 90% design approval, which meant that projects go through a design process. We want to make sure and enhance that there's an enhanced or higher standard of elements from these 3 buckets added to those projects, so it's a more complete project. Under the first program, active transportation, we have 4 projects that will be receiving funding. All of them are street reconstructions. We have Madrid Avenue, Melendres, and South Main. Ethel, it's still pending design approval. Under complete street, we also have the reconstruction projects with East Mesa Roads and Drainage. This will be along Cortez Road, Melendres, and South Main. And lastly, resiliency, Casa Linda, East Mesa Roads, which is a Cortez project, Melendres, and Ethel, which again pending design approval. So with that, our next steps is to continue reviewing our accounts, our projects, our numbers, and be ready for the CIP adoption that is planned for May 19 of this year. So with that, I'm here for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Cynthia. Do we have any questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Mayor, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to tell Cynthia thank you for a great presentation.
Anyone else? We're good? Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Good job. Let me just open it up to the public, if there's any members of the public that would like to speak at this time. Okay, seeing none. Thank you. Good job. Next on the agenda is item 3.3, the City of Las Cruces Parks and Recreation Impact Fee Study. That'd be Catherine Harris-Rogers and Julie Erlins.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. Catherine Harrison-Rogers for the record. Today we're here to talk about the draft impact fee study for parks. This particular study provides a synopsis of the maximum fee that can be allotted towards park impact fees, which essentially are those fees that are needed to basically maintain our current levels of service moving forward. So Chapter 33 of the Municipal Code requires a review of the impact fees of the land use assumptions, i.e. our growth rates, the number of people living here, how we're growing as a city, and our capital improvements plan at least every 5 years. Or it requires that the council determines that there are no updates needed to any of those things. Impact fees, again, are a funding mechanism that offset growth impacts. And these periodic changes are needed to account for accelerating or diminishing growth rates, changing household sizes, fluctuations in the level of service, meaning the amount of parkland or amenities that we have per 1,000 people in the city, cost escalations, as well as shifting policy and priorities with City Council or the public. A little bit of a history regarding park impact fees. These are collected at the time of building permit, either for single-family or multifamily homes. And they've fluctuated over the years. They were established in 1995 with Chapter 33 in our municipal code. And at the time, there was a fee of $249 for single family and $175 for multifamily. That lasted well into 2007. That's not to mean that they weren't reviewed subsequently, but that fee in particular lasted that long. And in 2007, there was a resolution that increased that fee over a period of 2 years. Started at $550 for single-family residents and $400 for multifamily, and then was increased over a period of 2 years to $800 for single-family residences, and then $400 for multifamily residences if amenities were provided on site. So, for example, if an apartment complex provided a pool and a gym and outside areas for recreation and play, those fees could be reduced to $400. If not, it was $800, similar to the single-family residential. Then in 2013, there was a resolution that established the current fees. Those are currently $2,600 per unit, both single-family and multifamily. And there have been subsequent draft reports related to park impact fees over the years that have requested a slightly higher than what was adopted by council. The draft study was prepared by Tischler Bice, and here we have a representative, Julie Hurlins with Tischler Bice. Again, this study is the maximum allowable fee based on the analysis that was done by the consultant and the information available. Of course, much of that comes from us. Something to note, council can lower that fee, however, they cannot exceed that fee. It should be noted that if the maximum allowable isn't adopted, there generally still is a gap in terms of the amount of funding it takes to maintain what we call our level of service for park land and amenities. This particular study includes the land use assumptions. Again, that is the area in question. That would be the city of Las Cruces, as well as the growth rates, people per household, things like that. The capital improvement plan, not to be confused with what was just shown to you by Cynthia, that's actually the facility types that can be included as part of this study, including their level of service. For example, that would be how many pools are available per 1,000 people, for example. Cost analysis. Basically, how much does it take to build one of those facilities, or how much does it cost to build an acre of parkland? And then, of course, the maximum impact fees. It's basically adding up all those different facility types, the number of people, and maintaining that level of service, and coming up with this maximum fee. We've recommended in this particular report 2 different methodologies that, of course, City Council will have to choose from. One is by housing type, which we've done historically, multifamily and single family. Usually different fees are the same fee for those. Or by unit size, which is similar to the way it's the public safety impact fee is currently been adopted and is being applied. And in this particular case, it's broken down into 3 housing types. And then, of course, the study also includes revenues and shortfalls, basically how much is really needed over time to make sure that we are maintaining our current level of service. There's always a shortfall, even if we adopt the full maximum park impact fees, which is interesting to note. And Julie can provide a little bit more information about that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her, because she is the expert and has a lot of information to present today. And I'm going to go ahead and get that opened for you. Bear with me one second. All right, go ahead, Julie.
Okay, this is a little bit different format. Okay, great. And let me see if I can get it a little bit zoomed in here. Okay, this is in a PDF format, so a little bit different. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. My name is Julie Hurlins. I'm Vice President with Tischler Bice. It's good to be here with you today. And as Catherine gave a very good overview of where we're at, I'm going to get into a little bit more of the detail of the calculations, some of the information that's included in the report, highlight that material, and we'll go from there. So there are a number of components within the impact fee study and the impact fee itself. These are, and we talk about components, and these are the types of sort of the sub types of parks underneath the park calculation. So we have neighborhood parks, community parks, with 2 different types. One is sort of a community park general, community park athletic, special use parks, trails, recreation centers, indoor aquatic facilities, and outdoor aquatic facilities. And you'll see throughout, we have options presented for the impact fee with neighborhood parks and without. And this is directly related to the recent adoption of Envision Las Cruces, where there's some changes in subdivision regulations, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But we are presenting the fees with both neighborhood parks and without, if with the adoption of Envision Las Cruces, the requirement for neighborhood park landed improvements to be provided at development approval sort of negates the need for it to be in the impact fees. So it is a choice here.
Really quick, it's realize.
I'm sorry, realize. I'm sorry, I apologize. Realize, thank you. I think you probably were trying to give me that.
That was a much older and different place and a different study from somewhere else. So realize. Okay, so what I'll be showing you is a series of slides that call out some of the detail in the study that you have in your packet with a listing and an inventory of the current levels of service, where the city is at today, again, by each of these subcomponents. So first, we'll talk about neighborhood parks, and this is an inventory, again, of what's in place currently. And what we're doing here is totaling the number of acres, 100.56 acres, so almost 101 acres of neighborhood parks currently in the ground, and then deriving a level of service. And again, level of service in this case is the infrastructure level of service. So the amount of acreage of this type of park per 1,000 persons currently in the city. And so you'll see here our level of service is 0.87. And we apply a land acquisition cost here for this type of park at 70,000 per acre. And this is, we have some more detail on that as well if we want to drill down, but information in the report on that calculation. To get to a land cost per person for neighborhood parks of $60.90, so almost $61. So this is kind of a format that we use throughout the study for each of these subcomponents. And so the next one then is community parks, both again, general and community parks athletic facilities. What is interesting here is that when we round, we end up at the same level of service, purely coincidental. As I joked with staff, I checked this many times because when you come out with the same, a very similar or a same number, you want to make sure there's not something else going on there. So approximately 149 acres of each of these types of facilities. And these are defined throughout with staff and in the master plans and ongoing work to identify the types of facilities or the types of amenities within these facilities and how those are classified. So each of these, yep, sure can. Oop, nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me do this. Yes. Okay, better. Okay, thank you, Catherine. Okay, so level of service for each of these types of park, about 1.3 acres per 1,000. In this case, there's a different land acquisition cost for these types of parks, separate from the neighborhood parks at $65,000 an acre. So a cost per person applying that level of service multiplied by the land cost, $83.85. For special use parks, again, a different subcategory under the umbrella of Parks and Recreation, a current inventory of acres of about 39 acres, a level of service of 0.33 per 1,000, a land cost per acre that is similar to that is akin to the neighborhood park, so a land cost per person of $23.10. And then for these types of outdoor facilities, we then have, those are all the land, the cost per person on the land acquisition side. So then we get to, well, the stuff that's in the park, so the improvement costs within the parks. And so for this is a standard 2-acre park at a cost per acre of $438,000 per acre for improvements, and this is a prototypical type of park with these types of amenities within the park. And then we show here, again, providing some options with either with neighborhood parks and without, or both of those options. We have a cost per person that's assigned to that level of service. So with neighborhood parks, we're at a higher amount of about $1,600 per person, $1,655, and without neighborhood parks, applying that level of service of about $1,274. Then we move on to trails. And the trails level of service is expressed as linear miles. So this is, again, the current inventory in place today of about 83 linear miles of trails. The current level of service, about 0.24, and applying the improvement cost per mile of trail of $260,000, we get a trail cost per person of $62.40. Moving on to some indoor facilities. First, we start with recreation centers. This, again, is the current level of service in square footage, so 56,000 and change of square feet for current facilities, and the level of service then about 0.5 per person. This is we get into these types of facilities where, and for all of these, that if they're included in the impact fee, the direction in the future is for the city to continue to provide these same facilities and these same levels of service. So in this case, we have a current level of service of 0.5 square feet per person, and a construction cost to provide future recreational facilities of $725 per square foot. So the cost per person is $355. So again, if this were going to be included, just like all of these other components, the city is agreeing to continue to provide that same level of service in the future, provide that facility. For indoor aquatic facilities, this one's a little bit different. This reflects facilities that have already been built. And so this is what we call a cost recovery methodology. And so these are, this is allocated, or this is essentially spread out over future populations. So you'll see here the population number is different. It's 20 years into the future, and that we're taking that square footage and allocating it into the future. And then reflecting the city's share of the cost. So there was some external funding that was used for these facilities, and so we're reflecting what the city contributed to get to the cost per person. And you'll see here that $180 is the cost per person included in the component in the impact fee calculation. And then finally, the outdoor aquatic facilities piece is essentially the splash pad component. And this is the current, a current level of service for what's in the ground today, cost of about $26 per person. Again, the assumption that the city continues to build outdoor splash pads and splash parks. So altogether, each of those components then we use as a building block to get to the impact fee, the maximum supportable calculated impact fee. And so this is just a sort of a snapshot summary of where those costs, how those costs are relative to the total. We also do include a credit in the calculation that accounts for potential double payment by folks paying taxes that are then used to retire debt on these same facilities. So we have a credit that's integrated into the fee, and then a calculated fee for single family and multifamily, and as Catherine mentioned, we have two options here for the fees. But first, I'll show you how the level of service translates into future growth-related needs. So what you're seeing at the top of this slide is a summary of all of those levels of service and the cost factors that go along with those. And then the middle part of this slide then shows the projected population, which comes from that land use assumptions, which is part of the documentation. So a projected population of about 14,000, almost 15,000 residents over the next 10 years. Now, these are projections. They're not meant to be a prediction necessarily. If the city then grows slower than what we've projected, there would be less of a need for infrastructure. If the city grows faster, then there would be more of a need for infrastructure. So what you're seeing here then is for this 14,629 increase, how many acres and square feet and linear miles of this infrastructure would be needed to accommodate that growth. So it is tied back to the growth, back to the land use and the growth-related needs, as opposed to existing deficiencies, as opposed opposed to increasing levels of service, et cetera. This is at the current levels of service, what are those infrastructure needs? And that's in this gray shaded area and the green highlighted cost associated with those improvements. Again, if the city were to grow slower, there would be less of a need. If the city were to grow faster, there would be more of a need, again, at that same level of service. And there are choices along the way of funding those things or not. So given that, with those needs, those levels of service, those cost components, the impact fees can be calculated and were calculated, and this is what you have in the report in the packet. So again, with neighborhood parks, so this is like the fully loaded, maximum supportable top level of potential impact fees with all of the components at that highest rate. Again, we're showing in these two different methodologies or two different approaches, a two-fee approach where it's single family or multifamily versus a impact fee schedule by size, which would be all of the units together. So it's one or the other. You wouldn't adopt both of those schedules. So you'll see here that by the fee schedule by square footage, you have a low end, a small unit, the smallest unit with a household size that's scaled to that unit. That is currently, would be at the maximum level with neighborhood parks, lower than the current fee is in place today of that $2,600. When we then turn to, one more kind of rounding that out, with that maximum fee, what does that mean in terms of a potential revenue collection, given the projection, the same projections that we've based those, the needs on? We have a shortfall, what looks like a sizable shortfall, but what's really showing is of this $28 million, a big portion of that is from the already built indoor pool. So the growth-related share is much lower, and I'll show you that sort of a better example without neighborhood parks. So let me just turn to the without the neighborhood parks piece. So this is the maximum calculated fees without that neighborhood park component. So no land, no improvements on the neighborhood park level of parks. And so then again, we're looking at on the by size category, a low end, the lowest level of the fee that's less than the current fee at $2,600. So that's about a 22% reduction on that low end. Again, this is without neighborhood parks. And then the kind of parallel, and again, having, I think this is an easier thing to see here, and the highlight here is that basically with that credit that's included in the calculation, the shortfall from growth, even at this maximum level, is about 4.1 million. Again, this 27 million includes, I'm kind of using my cursor here, includes this kind of large amount that's already been built and sort of sunk, that those costs have already been sunk, so to speak, for pools. And with that, I'm happy to, and Catherine's going to wrap up with a closing. So thank you for your time.
So I do have some additional information to provide you before we get to questions, specifically regarding the Capital Improvements Advisory Board. And let me open this into a better view. So they're an advisory body to the City Council related to park impact fees, levels of service, the CIP. And they met several times to discuss this particular report. First, January 2023, there was a recommendation for approval of the land use assumptions. They had actually reviewed that in the fall and then brought it back for further discussion. And then in February 27th of 2025, there was a recommendation of the draft study. That being said, they did recommend an alternate fee structure than what was provided in the report. They did an independent analysis of neighborhood park costs and came up with an entirely different fee than the report came up with. Now, I do want to let you know, take it with a grain of salt, although the information they had was information that worked well for them. It didn't account for a lot of our component parts that were included in the analysis, because we used essentially what would be a sample park. And those fees were based on real fees that came from either projects that we did, projects that independent developers did that we then reimbursed them of. Let me show you what the recommendation from CIAC was so that you can see the difference. There was much lower in terms of the proposed fee, still an increase on some of the higher levels, but certainly an even greater decrease than had been proposed by the draft report. The draft report was a 22% decrease for this lesser level. And then, of course, everything increased as well. Something to note, the methodology that they did select in terms of their recommendation to this council was the square footage methodology rather than by multifamily, single family, which is the unit type. Just to break it down further, this was the analysis that was done by CIAC in terms of their cost per acre for improvements. And again, if you recall in the report, it was $438,000 per acre for improvements based on our analysis. Their analysis determined $306,000 per acre. Some considerations for council as we move forward with this and actually go to a public hearing on a regular council agenda is, again, the methodology. The by unit type option or unit size option. Again, unit size is more in keeping with the way the public impact safety fees are. Something that both CIAC and staff prefer, but ultimately it's up to this council to make that decision. The facility types, to include or exclude neighborhood parks. Again, Realize Las Cruces is incorporating that into requirements for developers as they build out subdivisions, which is why the recommendation was to remove it here. And then, of course, the fee. The maximum fee as recommended by the report, the CIAC recommendation, another fee as determined appropriate by this council, or that there are no updates or changes needed at all. That is under your purview. And so with that, we would be happy to take questions. I know that there's a lot of information here. You were able, of course, to hopefully review the report, and we have additional information if need be, if there are specific questions that perhaps come up.
All right, thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Julie. Questions? Councilor Corinne.
Thank you. Thank you for including all of this data, and I realize that now I want to have your job. This is super interesting to me, so I love it. It's totally my jam. Thank you for orienting us on this, and I briefly saw Phil walk in, but then he ran away. I don't know. This is something that, from my perspective, is we've been considering as a city for a really long time. It's really overdue. Like, I think we've been neglecting our duties to address park impact fees for a long time, and I think we now kind of have the experience of having to catch up, which is not a great situation to be in. But I was hoping that you could bring up, so you had the CIAC recommendations, but the one prior to that is or on this, I think it's just one page up.
Okay.
I guess for me, the most important variables that I think about, and again, I think that my district probably has the fastest growth of anyone, so these impact fees will probably be paid primarily by people moving into District 5. And that's part of what I consider in this, but I also see that lots of parks exist in our district, and people are always calling me to ask that the city come out and maintain their tiny 1-acre neighborhood park. And so all of those variables for me really make me think, sorry, it's like maybe one more up. This one, I think. So I just wanted to say, for me, I think this is, I think we should include neighborhood parks, although I understand that the variable that Realize is somewhat complicating of that. So for me, in part because of that very reason, that many people in my district benefit from neighborhood parks, and but I don't know how that will be moving forward in terms of development and reimbursement and all of those things. So I sort of defer on that. But I know that all of these get passed on to residents. That is how buying a home goes. And one of the biggest things that people always say is don't put up barriers to housing. And what I very much appreciate about this model is that it takes into account entry-level housing for people who have small families versus, sort of middle of the road, and thinks about housing units, how many people there are using the services based on that. So I would like to say that I support the way that this is approached in terms of square footage, making it parallel to the public safety impact fees. And I also want to really encourage us. In my district, I think in the last year, housing prices have increased enormously, and people continue to buy houses. So I say this, homes stay on the market for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. They cost probably 35% more than when I moved into the district, at least, or perhaps up to 50% more than when I moved into my district. And so I just want to put the caveat in here that while housing prices, this is a factor in housing prices, they're going to go up whether, I anticipate whether we do a lot of things or not. This isn't one of the biggest variables driving housing prices from my observations and experience in the district. So I would also urge us to do the maximum allowable fee per unit, because folks are enjoying these services. They're expecting a level of service from us. We owe it to people to give them green space in the outside, and I would similarly argue that this accounts for steep impacts on the housing sort of supply by changing to a residential per square foot model instead of something else. And so it accounts for that in the calculation. So I just want to say thank you for presenting this. Of those options that were given, I don't know if this is, I don't remember if this is actually the one. I think I'm thinking of the one with neighborhood parks. Oh yeah, that one's really a lot. So I am here for this. This is the one that I would say I am in for, the maximum allowable for each, in part because thinking about what benefits folks experience, it's disproportional from this, and also I think for a while people were paying like $3,000 to be members of a golf club in my district, and so I say that for context, like that's not. That's one golf course, and again, I'm not saying that that's not a legitimate expense. It's great, but this is all of the facilities that the city provides and so many neighborhood parks. So for me, this is what I would ask for moving forward. I realize I'm a singular sort of voice in that conversation, but I have been watching this issue since I got on council, and I'm really happy to have the opportunity, and I urge us to do it as soon as we possibly can so that we can start addressing the revenue shortage and building more new park facilities too.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you so much for this presentation and for finally getting us here. Like Councilor Corn said, we've been talking about this for a really long time. I remember early days of the Ifo-Pili administration. I spoke to him often about honestly the need for us to improve our parks impact fee system as a whole. I think we have incredible staff that has gotten us to this point, not only with this conversation, but with the improvements in Realize that, of course, while that's still sort of out there, I'm very confident that we will have Realize as a citywide policy. So I just really do, first of all, want to thank all of you for this work. This is tremendously exciting. I don't think I would take this job. It's way too many numbers for me, but I do love this conversation as a whole. And then because there were so many numbers and because so many of us have different filter than that, I just want to say a couple things to summarize so that I make sure I understand and so make sure that the public understands. Not that you all aren't numbers people, but I imagine there's a lot of non-numbers people. Okay. Early on, you spoke about sort of the cost per person and all of that, and you said that if we stay on track, like if we change nothing, that the need for our park system would be around $37 million. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes. and no.
Oh, okay.
But yes, more yes than no. Let me go to with neighborhood parks. Okay, and I'm kind of in between reading and distance glasses, so this is kind of tough. So,
So if
well,
you-
actually, let
yeah,
me go
if you
back.
go
I'm
back
sorry.
to-
Yep, this
if you
one.
were like,
Yep,
if
yep,
you
yep.
do nothing today.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Sorry. The, no, actually, so growth-related share, you are exactly right. I apologize. Exactly right. This is, yep, $37 million, you're exactly right, of growth-related needs based on the projections that we have, that are from multiple sources, trends. We look back, we look forward. There's other external projection sources that we will look at. But given a projection over 10 years of about 14,000 and change of people at that level of service, yes, there's $37 million worth of growth-related needs, of which the majority of that is in the park improvements. And so I was mistaken in the indoor aquatic, because what we show here is just that, the growth-related share in this chart. So yeah, the 2.6 million.
Okay,
Exactly.
I was
Yep,
just so
yep.
happy when you said that I was right.
You're exactly
so
right.
thank you. Okay. So then my second question to this is, and just brace everybody, brace yourselves, I'm going to say a really scary word. I want to talk about the equity in the park system. And so even earlier, I think in one of your slides earlier, right, you had the neighborhood parks, all of them listed. I would have loved if you added a column on which district they were, because I think it would have shown the serious inequity that we have in the city of Las Cruces in terms of the person in the park, right, and who has access to neighborhood parks and who doesn't, because of, frankly, in my opinion, the years of disinvestment in the park system through the park impact fee system and all of that. And so I think I maybe perhaps for our voting session, I would love to see something like that, because I think from someone like, I'm in District 4, and from someone like me where there is very little growth happening, there's some growth, but very little growth. And the growth that has happened, right? Like I always point to Legends West neighborhood. I don't know if you know or not, but this growing sort of neighborhood, right, had this tiny little pocket park, and they said, yeah, we'll build some trails, and it's just not adequate for that neighborhood. And so when I think about this conversation, I always think about Legends West, and that neighborhood as a whole, and District 4 as a whole, and 3 and 1 just deserved better in terms of neighborhood parks. So that's how I'm sort of approaching this. I'm also wondering if you have like national best practices for what this like dollar per person should be, the land cost per person. Do you have that top of your head? And I'm curious if sort of how that matters in this conversation.
Right. It's a great question. So I always, we have lots of discussions both here and elsewhere. So my firm does work nationally. We do impact fees. We've done over 1,000 impact fees. I don't know what our number is these days, but across the country, 40 years. I've been there for half of that time. Speaking of numbers, so we're really hesitant to talk about comparisons and comparable communities, because every community's level of service is different. Everyone has a different range of things and types of parks and types of services, types of facilities that they provide underneath, the umbrella of Parks and Rec. So we're very hesitant to do that. We have had questions, and we can follow up on some of what we've learned sort of regionally and in the state, but it is kind of a real checkerboard in terms of who does impact fees, who doesn't, what other sources of funding there are. So we work in Colorado, Arizona. Colorado, there's kind of this sort of a history and a tradition of dedicated taxes to purchase open space. So sort of they take their open space piece out and kind of do that separately. So there's really a checkerboard of who does what and when and where, and the history. Florida is very different than Arizona, than Colorado. California is its own, thing. And New Mexico is kind of a mix of all of those things. There's really not a kind of a standard. And so we're long way to say, I'm hesitant to provide those kinds, the specifics in terms of dollars. We can say, you know, what other folks have done, you know, regionally and kind of within the state.
No, I really respect that. Thank you. Thanks for that. I think one of the things that I appreciate most about this study is that it is like deeply localized. Like it is all local data, all local numbers. And so I think that that's actually really incredible, right? I think some of the sort of tension that exists around the last number, the 2,600, is that it's a little bit of an arbitrary number, and I want to move away from that completely. And what you have done here is said, oh, I have receipts. Like we got to this number through a very specific localized formula. And so I really respect that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think just generally, I think what I would like to say about some of this and what I'm already expecting will be the pushback around, well, this will make home prices increase. And I do want to note that in 2013, the last time there was an increase, which was a very long time ago. And if anything I've learned from utilities is that we should not rate shock people, right? Like that rate shock is bad. We should try to avoid putting this huge increase on people. And so instead you do a more gradual, smaller increases in order to upkeep and maintain your entire system and deliver good service. I feel like that's a good perspective for this as well. And in 2013, honestly, the narrative was the same. Like if you raise it, you're gonna make it impossible for someone to buy a home. I would argue that right now, first-time home buyer, it's already impossible for them to buy a home, and it's not because of park impact fees. It's because of stagnant wages. It's because of student loan debt. It's because of medical. It's because of a lot of other things that have nothing to do with park impact fees. And yet here we are trying to figure out how to provide the best service to our community. Parks, I deeply believe, are just as vital as a utility, and so I'm very happy that we're having this conversation. For me, I think what I would like to see us move forward with is I think it's page 16, the piece without neighborhood parks, given the piece that exists in Realize. I think if we sort of said you have to dedicate certain parkland and there will not be reimbursements anymore and you have to pay an additional fee, I fear that would get us in legal trouble potentially. So given the stuff surrounding Realize right now, though, in my mind, if Realize is the new zoning code, I think for me, I would like to move forward with this in the residential by square foot. The only caveat, maybe asterisk, that I would put here is that one of the biggest motivators behind Realize, one of the biggest motivators of the city as a whole, is to increase our housing stock. Like, we have a serious housing crisis for not just affordable units, but fair market rent units, the missing middle type of units, right? Like, we are in a housing crisis, and we are trying to do many things in order to incentivize what that looks like. And again, we can't predict the future, right? So I don't know if this number on the 1,300 or less would yield us what we desire to see, and especially in the infill. And I don't know. And so I guess if we move forward with something like this, I would like us to sort of in a year, and just in conversations with staff, right? Like, in a year, we revisit and say, did this yield us the kind of housing, the multifamily housing that we were hoping to, especially in the infill? And if it didn't, perhaps it's time to revisit what the cost for 1,300 or less, specifically the less, could actually look like. Do you think, so that we wouldn't have to do an arbitrary number at that point, is there a way that you and your firm and staff can come up with a number to help us address a situation like that?
Right. Yeah. Excellent question too on that sort of threshold. Certainly, so there's some flexibility in those ranges for sure. And this was to be consistent with the public safety fee. This is exactly in line with the public safety fee. Thinking there would be some level of consistency and, or that would provide a level of consistency and certainty from the development side. So you're sort of, you're kind of fitting in the same buckets as you're getting your building permit in terms on the other side of the table. But that can be an area that we from our side can look at a little bit closer. The potential issue there is the low end of the household size. And we have, you can go lower than one considering some vacancy, so this is a persons per housing unit. So at any given time, there's going to be some vacancy there, so you can be lower than one, but it still needs to be reasonable and it needs to sort of mathematically make sense.
Right, there's no half
right,
a person
right,
per unit.
Right. So, so it's sort of a yes or no, yes and no question, where you can certainly drill down and look a little bit deeper at the data to see how much, if you can go smaller than that 1,300 floor. But again, there is some flexibility there, and you can change the middle parts to the middle part too in terms of scaling it, to sort of different buckets. So we've worked in communities with a fee schedule with 10 categories or 3, sort of it can have a range there. So there's some flexibility there.
And I just want to say that I think for now, I'm very comfortable moving forward with this particular scale. And again, in a year, right, once Realize is in place and this and like all of that sort of pieces are in place, that we can look and actually say, like, what is happening, right? Is it working? Is it not working? And then sort of address it that way. But at this point, I just feel like we're so far behind as a whole that I'm not, willing to wait any longer. And I think this is just vitally important. And we need to improve our park system as a whole. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilor Corin, did you?
I just wanted to, this is actually for Catherine, so sorry, you're off the hook.
Okay.
But thank you again. And I can settle on this if that's what you want, but I'm going for the max. I'm just saying highest end. I just want to clarify one other point to this question. For the first time, I think this year, we waived impact fees for affordable housing, and I just want to clarify that changes to this would not change our ability to do that within ordinance, right?
That's correct. So section 13131 is where those provisions related to waivers for affordable housing projects exist. And historically, so you have sort of two options with that. Historically, what we've done is you, as council, have identified a budget, given that to affordable housing so that we could reimburse those fees as we have affordable housing projects come through. We had a really large housing project come through this year, and the code actually allows for a full waiver. That's built into the code as well. Just historically, it hasn't been done, but it was done the first time this year for Peachtree apartments in the Metro Verde area, and there was a full waiver of that for the affordable housing, and it's a fully affordable HUD identified project. So,
with a ton of amenities.
With a ton of amenities, that's correct. Pickleball, yes.
Councilor Grant?
Yeah, I'm not going to add anything really new to the conversation, but just want to chime in that I also support moving ahead with the maximum allowable fee. Sticker shock is not fun, but it's the inevitable consequence of not addressing these things in a timely fashion over years and years. And I understand, I'm not dunking on previous councils. I understand why it's easy or sometimes easier to just say, oh, okay, never mind, we're not going to change anything because you're being badgered, people are angry, you're being threatened with not being reelected, which is not my problem. So I'm happy to, both recognize, understand how we got here, but say it is time to move ahead. So I just wanted to add on to that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor McClure?
I'll add on to that as well. I think that it is time to kind of recognize what benefits, mental health-wise, parks do for our city, and everybody enjoys the amenities to the ways that they can allow for themselves. So I would also like to ask, I think in our one-on-one meeting, I had suggested cutting a little bit into the 1,300 or less. I like the idea that it might incentivize a different type of housing as well. So I'll add to that as also, and yeah, the square footage is probably the better portion of that. Thank you.
All right, thanks. What I would like to add is it is difficult to balance. It is something we are playing catch up. As you can see, the dates of when we started with the impact fees and then when they were increased, I don't know, it was 9 or 11 years, but there was a big gap. And we've seen that, and we've seen that with our own parks. In our previous presentation on the budget, we showed where we put money from the Telshar Fund into our legacy parks. And I think that starts with us to set the standard and say, these are the parks we want for our city, and we've done that. So I think it's also up to the developers and the builders and everyone else to ante up and make the nice parks that we expect. But we have to have that balance with building as well. If we do nothing, we're just going to get further behind. I think we all agree with that. So to say with consistency, I'm in favor of the square footage to be consistent with public safety. But then also I'm looking at the page 16 is that the one without the neighborhood? Is that 16?
16.
Yeah, looking at that, so we kind of have that happy medium, because what we also have available is what we've already done, the Telshar Fund. And then I know up next, we're having another presentation with the GO bonds, and that's where we get to that equity, and that's where we can look and say, these are the park improvements we need in certain areas, and the city continues to grow and develop, and we don't get further behind, but at the same time, if we need to catch up, we have other options. We have the public safety critical infrastructure GRT coming up that'll start in July. Those will be some other opportunities that we can catch up with the things that have been neglected, but we move forward and everybody does their piece, and we try to balance as best we can to have a bright, sustainable financial future and not always trying to catch up. So that would be my recommendation. The square footage and the page 16 would be what I would be looking at. All right? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So next we have item 3.4, the GO bond quarterly update. Mr. David Cedillo.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. David Cedillo, Public Works Director for the record. Accompanying me and also providing the update for the 2022 GO Bond updates is Ms. Natalie Green, our Housing Neighborhood Revitalization Administrator. As you all may recall, our community approved 4 projects and 4 questions, just as a reminder. On that bond question, or that election question, sorry, for a new fire station, number 9, the continuation of the East Mesa Public Rec Complex, affordable housing, and park improvements. As part of our last update in January, the new fire station was approximately 10%. We're working on finishing up the rough-ins and also the exterior footings. At this point in time right now, the contractors are nearly complete with the stem wall. What that is the CMU, or the concrete mortar units, that are going to make up the wall on the exterior and the interior portion of the building. And with that, they will be prepping portions of the building to install the concrete pad. That'll involve some vapor barrier, which goes between the soil and up onto the CMU. They will also be erecting the internal structural components or the columns for the building. That way they can continue with the concrete pad as we move forward. At this point in time, with that, construction is at 15%, and you'll see some photos here in a little bit. But at this point in time, you're going to start to see a little bit more vertical improvements as time goes on. Photo there on the left is completion of some of those cleanouts or utility stub outs for the building along there through a footing. In the middle picture, you're starting to see those CMU blocks go up. Also there on the right, as you start to see photos of the image of the building itself. And with that, here's the construction schedule. As I mentioned, we're 15% through the project. Based on our estimated schedule that we had developed prior to the project, the schedule shows that we should be estimated about 15%. As installations continue, we look to catch up to that schedule moving forward. For the park improvements, at our last meeting, we had let you know that we were still working to finalize that lease agreement with IBWC. That has been completed. We are going to be moving forward with construction here in mid-May in a few weeks. With that, we will start those improvements on the south half of the park. As you all know, La Llorona has both a north and a south portion that's bisected by US 70 or Picacho Avenue. However, there is a trail that goes underneath and connects them. At our last meeting, we also updated that we were getting quotes for park equipment replacement at Tilbrook, as that was the item number 2 identified under the park master plan for need. Through discussions with Parks and Rec, we are going to be moving forward with a new scope at La Llorona. Now, this will involve improvements to the north half of La Llorona. You can see right over here to the right, where my mouse is moving, you do have US 70 or Picacho Avenue. There is some playground equipment down over here and some other areas that the scope of work is going to be used to identify with those funds that were left over from the original bid. Those include replacing the playground equipment there at the park on the north side, and also the safety surfacing. If any of you recall, the safety surfacing around parks is that kind of smushy rubberized texture that allows for less impact. There'll also be some wayfinding and also looking at mitigating some of the stormwater that comes here through the playground. Now, depending on how we mitigate that and whether we propose to discharge that stormwater into the river, may have to amend the lease with IBWC. However, we're looking at options to see what we can do to help mitigate some of that at this point in time right now. And as a reminder, up at the top, you'll see some of those pictures that we were doing with the original work addressing sidewalks, some of the benches, shade structures, not only that, but fountains, and then also upgrading the restrooms. Down over here towards the bottom, you'll see that picture there. This encompasses both those improvements on the south and also on the north. For this project here, we haven't started that construction based on the lease agreement that was going back and forth. However, at this point in time, if you remember, those schedules, again, were an estimate. So starting construction, we are looking to meet the deadline that we do have there through Q4. Our next project here for the East Mesa Public Works Complex and the continuation of it, I'll get into that here shortly, but I want to also touch base on those items remaining from the punch list and the work that was added to Phase 1. So the shade structures at this point in time, we are nearing completion of those. We understood that there was a delay as we received them. It looks like we will be finishing up those that were installed within the pickleball courts here within the next week or so. And then the other shade structure within the park itself should be completed within 3 weeks. For the playground equipment that was added to this phase, that construction will begin also mid-May. We are estimating 12 weeks for installation on that park equipment. And again, I'll show you on the map where that's going to be installed. And then finally, for the continuation with that 2.7 under the question that was approved here in 2022, those improvements, that procurement is in progress. We did mention that we were going out and getting costs. The cost that we received for everything that we had wanted to install came well above what we currently have. We had to scale back some of those, and I'll go over what those improvements will be. That process is in procurement right now. Once we have that, we will be moving forward, and we're estimating to be in construction starting in June. So here are those items that will be installed as part of this work through here. We have 2 basketball courts, the restroom at the 10-acre park, some street furniture with benches, shade structures, must-go lighting. This will include that lighting for the basketball courts and the skate park adjacent to. Skate park is under a separate contract and not part of these GO bond funds. However, through those other funds, that skate park is being built adjacent here within the complex. And then lastly, we do have a 10 by 10 public art space that'll be going in as you come into the complex itself here. Here's the schedule that we do have for that. Based on the estimated schedule through here, we are aligning with that and should be continuing to have those improvements done through Q4. And at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Natalie.
Good afternoon, Natalie Green for the record. Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is an update on the affordable housing projects. So Three Sisters is 88% complete. They've received temporary COs for buildings A and B, and they have leased those up. They're looking to get TCOs for C and D this week, and then E, H, and the rest of the letters next week, whatever those letters are. And then again, they're leasing up. There's already residents residing in buildings A and B. And then please save the date for our ribbon cutting on May 13th. Padrina Senior Apartments, and I will talk while this video plays. They are at 74% completion. The exterior is almost completely done. There's some minor cleanup that needs to occur. They are working on finishing what's the western wing. And then once the elevators come in, they want to phase occupancy. So they want to lease up the entire west wing, and then they'll finish out the east wing. And so they've just finished their dog park, all the stucco's done. And they're working to finalize that. I'll let it play a little bit more before I change the screen. And then they're also working on some of the landscaping is starting to go in. But for the sake of time, I'm going to skip ahead, and I can send you these videos if you want to see them. We have drone footage on all the projects from our Public Works team, so shout out to Chuck for his work on this. The Peachtree Canyon Apartments, it is under construction. They're at 26% completion, so they're starting framing on a lot of the buildings. They do think the first residential buildings will be complete in September of 2026, and so they want to start leasing in August and then also do TCO, so they'll be able to phase the occupancy. Arcadia First Phase 4, that's the single-family subdivision that we are acquiring with general obligation bonds to work on some single family. We finished the purchase negotiations, so that contract is out with the seller of the property, and then we'll bringing that forward for council approval. Amador Crossing is not funded with GO funds, but I do like to give updates. Again, we've secured over $14.25 million. The most recent award was $2 million from Housing New Mexico. We're just waiting final legal approval, hint, Brad, and then they're ready to wire me the $2 million next week. We do have a remaining gap of $1.3 million. We're looking for the state to fill that. If for some reason they don't fill that, there's some additional grant savings that we may have. And then I just wanted to give an update on some of our pipeline projects. From December, I do want to let you know that the Residences, which was the project near the Fire Station 9, is not moving forward. They were not able to submit an application, and the finances just don't pencil out. So that project will not be moving forward in that location. They are potentially evaluating other locations in the city. Paseos Verdes was awarded both capital outlay and a 9% low-income housing tax credit. So final approval for that project will go to the board, MFA board, May 21st. And once that moves forward, we'll work on transferring the property formally. We'll be finishing design and anticipate that we'll start construction in about 6 to 8 months. And then Royal Crossing, we're in pre-development, so we're still evaluating that project. That's a potential 147 unit, 55 plus community at the corner of Main Street and Solano in the Royal Crossing master plan. And they would be looking for some sort of commitment from the city just before the 2026 application cycle. And then we have 2 other projects that are single-family subdivisions that we're working on with Tierra del Sol. So the Sierra del Sol and the Skylark subdivisions are permit ready, so we're just waiting for some of those funds to come from the state, and we'll start construction on those. And with that, David and I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, David. Councilor Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I was a little bit ahead of you. Quick question, Natalie, regarding Three Sisters. First of all, thanks. This is all amazing. Oh, and I just want to give you some snaps for, goading Brad from the podium. Like, I've watched so much NFL draft lately, and that was a baller move. Like that, I appreciated that. So great to hear that we're already getting folks moving into Three Sisters. I know with Pedrena, the getting them leased out was, actually it was demand over supply that you were getting constant. How has leasing gone with Three Sisters? Has there been a good response from the community?
There are some few vacancies. So one of the things we're doing is the ribbon cutting will be open to the public. So we're hoping to, right after the ribbon cutting, we'll be able to fill the rest of the units. But
that's fantastic. So it can also be kind of a recruitment neighborhood building event. Fantastic.
And I will add that on Peachtree, we're at probably once a week getting an inquiry to be added to the wait list. So there have been some folks already anticipating those to be ready to go.
Oh, that's amazing. And do you have a sense of how are people finding out about this? Is it word of mouth? Is it city social media?
It's a little bit of all of it, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Graham. Some of it is updates from this. They end up in social media or the newspaper, and we get calls. In the case of Pedrena, sometimes it's district meetings or, again, people are just monitoring what's happening at council, and they saw something in the paper and are calling us. And then a lot of times it's just inquiries and calls, right? So someone's having a landlord-tenant issue and they're looking for a new place to live, and then we're able to provide a list of different subsidized properties across the city, including the flyers that we get from the property manager. And then, of course, all the properties have very large signs, so as people see construction move up, it does have typically contact information for either the developer or the property manager.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And then just a comment toward David, not so much a question. I'm happy to see the La Llorona Park improvements getting put on there. That's a place that I bicycle through several times a week, especially the wayfinding, because I feel like currently I am the wayfinding asset for the city, because anyone who looks lost, I'm like, I know this trail system, let me help you out. So great to know that, and that the, hopefully some stormwater fixes, because there can get it can be a whole other pool facility over there sometimes. So great to hear. Thank you. You can go ahead now, Councilor Corrin. Just kidding.
Yes, please.
I would like to add to my budget request a small sandwich board for Graham to wear while she's cycling, that she can, maybe whiteboard that she can write directions on. Ask me where you can go. I was just curious, I don't know if I remember, but could you talk about those 2 developments, Skylark and, I don't know where those are or anything about them. Could you just talk about them a little bit? Sierra del Sol and Skylark? I don't remember them, and
Mr.
they
Mayor,
sound cool.
Councilor Coran, Sierra del Sol is a subdivision that is next to Sierra Middle School. It is a piece of property that the city acquired in exchange for paving Bruins Lane. And so as part of that, we put out an RFP and did a development agreement. Tierra del Sol designed both subdivisions, but they've been holding out for funds to be able to build the infrastructure. And we anticipate those funds coming sometime in the new fiscal year through some grant funding, and so our hope is to do that. And that's Sierra and Lewis Street and Spruce, but the parking lot's there, so it's behind the parking lot. And then the other property, Skylark, is off Skylark Drive and Central on the East Mesa. We had initially looked at that to be a subdivision and 2-acre park, and that was a directive from former Councilor Sorg when he wanted a 2-acre park on the East Mesa. So we initially designed it for the park. When the cost came back to be able to build the subdivision out was unfeasible with the park, so they've redesigned it to make it all housing. And there is a substantial waiting list for both of those projects. So there's almost 200 people waiting for first-time home ownership. And so we do want to use a portion of the GO bonds to do first-time home buyers in Sierra del Sol, Skylark, and then the Arcadia, which is in the Metro Verde PUD. So a little bit of infill, a little bit of new.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Natalie. If you go back to this one, I don't have a question really. I just wanted to let you all know that last week when we met with Secretary of Workforce Development, Sarita Nair, we talked to her about all of these projects and like just how ready they are and the gaps in funding and really still advocating for that $10 million to come because we know that it will be used immediately, right? Like it's not money that's going to be sitting around sort of waiting for something to happen. Like it can be used right now, as you can see, obviously, even like with Amador that we still have a little bit of a gap, but it's already going and Peachtree is moving fast. And so, you know, just a huge thank you to Jan who was there. And then just really hoping, Natalie, that obviously you're keeping in connection with the secretary and making sure that we do as much as we can to advocate, is a kind word, but really fight for these dollars to come to our community.
I'm going to have a Tom Cruise moment of show me the money.
I love that, actually. I will join you. I think Las Cruces is ready, and like I said, we'd use it pretty immediately. So just thank you for, you know, all of your staff being so well prepared for that. And then, David, I just have one small question for you. On La Llorona Park, please, I apologize if I forgot, if you've probably talked about this in previous presentations, but the IBWC, it said approval that didn't have a check mark yet. And can you just talk to us about what that meant?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, right there. One.
So under the construction phase, the lease approved by all parties, that's the update for this one here. So yes, the lease has been approved. It may have to be amended based on how we mitigate the stormwater. That was part of the discussion.
Got it. Thank you so much. If I totally missed that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Mayor, Council Graham, thank you for the recognition. However, that was Parks who had the decision to move the funds over here. Just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good. Oh, that's good. Thanks. I did have one other question. The one on El Paseo. That's yeah, Padrina Senior Apartments. And it's not really with the housing. It's a little bit more for Steve. I just know throughout the community there's a lot of talk about more pickleball courts, more pickleball courts. And I know that there's the Franger Park there, and there's other parks. Is there any update? Is that something that can be converted from tennis courts to pickleball courts or in other areas of town?
Yes, we have looked into and talked with the community groups about using Fringer as a pickleball facility. The feedback was that from the pickleball group is more that they'd like to see a tournament site, a place that can grow out to 24 or 32 courts eventually. They feel like right now that they've been getting by. That was our discussions about 4 months ago, but I have seen an uptick in the last 3 months. East Mesa Pickleball Complex has been full. Previously, I usually maxed out at 5 courts out of the 8, and so and Apodaca had been down, short 1, usually open. And so we can go and convert Fringer to pickleball courts, and I do have a cost on doing that. We have also looked at making it multi-use and making it so that it can be a futsal/basketball and still add a couple pickleball courts there. And so we've been looking at each of those options.
All right, thank you, Steve. I was more concerned, or asking for the residents that are living there now in that community. It's just a walk right there to the park, and that to have some of those amenities. And I don't know if through the developer, Natalie, if there ever been talks about, having some recreation activities for their tenants as well. That's why I was wondering if that was something that could be done, but you already said you're looking at the cost, and that's something that maybe we could talk with
I was hoping
the residents.
You could see it from here, but I don't think you can. Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor,
when you played the video, that's what caught my eye was the park, all the green space behind there.
they are, they did add they need to paint the crosswalk, but they did add an ADA ramp with direct access from the apartment complex to correspond with the Franger and Gomez, what's it called? Master plan. And so my goal, not this year, next year, is to advocate for some grant funding for parks, similar to how housing advocated for Valley View Park. So it's on my list of wheeling and dealing to do to hopefully get them some grant funds to make some improvements to add additional connectivity with Padrino.
Sounds good, thank you. Okay. That was our last item. Thank you, David. Motion to adjourn?
So move, Graham.
Second.
This is on the motion to adjourn the work session. Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Councilor Matisse?
Yes.
Councilor Graham? Yes. Councilor Coran?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.